Welcome back to the fourth installment of Fairy Tale. The last story was The Brave Tin Soldier, and I was a bit conflicted. I couldn't tell if it was a happy ending or a sad ending. I think it felt more like just the simple movement through life. It was strange. It did make me feel a little empty, though. That was a strange feeling. Good story, well written, of course. Like everything in here, I'm still learning even how to read. So, today, The Ugly Duckling. Ooh. It was a lovely summer weather in the country, and the golden corn, the green oats, and the haystacks piled up in the meadows looked beautiful. The store walked about on his long red legs, chattering in the Egyptian language, which he had learned from his mother. The cornfields and meadows were surrounded by large forests, in the midst of which were deep pools. It was indeed delightful to walk about in the country. In the sunny spot stood pleasant old farmhouse, close by a deep river, and from the house waters side grew great burdock leaves, so high that under the tallest of them a little child could stand upright. The spot was as wild as the center of a thick wood. In this snug retreat sat a duck on her nest, watching for her young brood to hatch. I'm actually having a difficult time seeing this one this time. I forgot my glasses. That was a mistake. Don't do that again. So, we're going to continue to get through this, though. Because if I go get my glasses, it's going to be too dark when we get back up here. So, bear with me. I'm just going to start over. It was lovely summer weather in the country, and the golden corn, the green oats, and the haystacks piled up in the meadows looked beautiful. The stork walked about on his long red legs, chattering in the Egyptian language which he had learned from his mother. The cornfields and meadows were surrounded by large forests, in the midst of which were deep pools. It was indeed delightful to walk about in the country. In a sunny spot stood a pleasant old farmhouse, closed by a deep river, and from the house down to the water side grew a great burdock leaves, so high that under the tallest of them a little child could stand upright. The spot was as wild as the center of a thick wood. In this snug retreat sat a duck on her nest, watching for her young brood to hatch. She was beginning to get tired of her task. Hi, puppy. For the little ones were a long time coming out of their shells, and she seldom had any visitors. The other ducks liked much better to swim about in the river than to climb the slippery banks and sit under the burdock leaf to have a gossip with her. At length one shell cracked, and then another, and from each egg came a living creature that lifted its head and cried, "Peep, peep, quack, quack," said the mother. And then when they all quacked as well as they could, and looked about on every side at the large green leaves, their mother allowed them to... Man, I need to make sure I have my glasses next time. Their mother allowed them to look as much as they liked, because green is good for the eyes. I agree. Green's my favorite color. Green is absolutely good for the eyes. How large the world is, said the young ducks, when they found how much more room they had than whilst they were in their eggshell. Do you imagine this in the whole world? Asked the mother. Wait till you have seen the garden. It stretches far beyond to the Pattersons' fields, but I have never ventured to such a distance. Are you all out? She continued, rising. No, I declare, the largest egg lies there still. I wonder how long this is to last. I am quite tired of it, and she seated herself against the nest. Well, how are you getting on? Asked the old duck, who paid her a visit. One egg is not hatched, said the duck. It will not break. But just look at all the others. Are they not the prettiest little ducklings you've ever saw? They are the image of their father, who is so unkind, never comes to see me. Let me see the egg that will not break, said the duck. I have no doubt it is a turkey's egg. I will persuade it to hatch some once. Wow, I was persuaded to hatch some once. And after all my care and trouble with the young ones, they were afraid of the water. I quacked and chuckled, all but to no purpose. I could not get them to venture in. Let me look at the egg. Yes, that is a turkey egg. Take my advice, leave it where it is, and teach the other children to swim. I think I will sit a little longer, said the duck. As I have sat so long already, a few days will be nothing. Please yourself, said the old duck, and she went away. At the last, the large egg broke, and a young one crept forth crying, "Peep, peep." It was very large and ugly. The duck stared at it and exclaimed, "It's very large, and not at all like the others. I wonder if it really is a turkey. We shall soon find it out, however, when we go to the water. It must go in, if I have to push it myself." Sometimes you have to gently nudge your children forward, Just part of life. On the next day, the weather was delightful, and the sun shone brightly on the green burdock leaves. So the mother duck took her young brood down to the water and jumped in with a splash. "Quack, quack," she cried. One after another, the little ducklings jumped in. The water closed over their heads, but as they came up again an instant and swam about prettily, with their legs paddling under them as easily as possible, and the ugly duckling was also in the water swimming with them. "Oh," said the mother, "that is not a turkey. How well he uses his legs, and how upright he holds himself. He is my own child, and he is not so very ugly after all, if you look at him properly. Quack, quack, come with me now. I will take you into grand society and introduce you to the farmyard, but you must keep close to me or you may be trodden upon, and above all, beware the cat. Above all, beware the cat." When they reached the farmyard, there was a great disturbance. Two families were fighting for an eel's head, which, after all, was carried off by the cat. "See, children, that's the way of the world," said the mother duck, wetting her beak, for she would have the eel's head herself. "Come now, use your legs. Let me see how well you can behave. You must bow your heads prettily to that old duck yonder. She is the highest born of them all. And come now, heads, beds, we're going to just start that entire paragraph from the beginning. When they reached the farmyard, there was a great disturbance. Two families were fighting for an eel's head, which after all was carried off by the cat. "See, children, that is the way of the world," said the mother duck, wetting her beak, for she would have liked the eel's head herself. "Come now, use your legs, and let's see how well you can behave. You must bow your pretty heads to that old duck yonder. She is the high-born of them all, and tied to her leg, which is something very grand and great of honor for a duck. It shows that everyone is anxious not to lose her, as she can be recognized. Duckling spreads his feet wide apart, just like his father and mother in his way. Now bend your neck and say quack." The ducklings did as they were bid, but the other duck stared and said, "Look, here comes another brood, as if there were not enough of us already. And what a queer-looking object one of them is. We don't want him here." And then one flew out and bit him in the neck. "Leave him alone," said the mother. "He's not doing any harm." "Yes, but he's so big and ugly," said the spiteful duck, "and therefore he must be turned out." The others are very pretty children, and the old duck, which with the rag on her leg, all but that one. I wish his mother could improve him a little. That is impossible, your grace," replied the mother. "He is not pretty, but he has a very good disposition, and swims as well, or even better than the others. I think he will grow up pretty, and perhaps be smaller. He has remained too long in the egg, and therefore his figure is not properly formed. And then she stroked his neck and smoothed his feathers, saying, "It is a drake, and therefore not for what along in the egg, and therefore his figure is not formed." And then she stroked his neck and smothered the feathers, saying, "It is a drake, and therefore not of so much consequence. I think he will grow up strong and able to take care of himself." That is interesting. We're putting the word drake right here with these birds. I love that, actually. That says a lot. And nobody knew that. Nobody knew that birds are descendants of dinosaurs. Like, that's just a beautiful accidental hello. "The other ducklings are graceful enough," said the old duck. "Now make yourself a home, and if you find an eel's head, you can bring it to me." And so they made themselves comfortable, put the poor duckling, who had crept out of his shell at last and looked so ugly, was bitten and pushed, made fun of, not only by the ducks, but by all the poultry. "He is too big," they all said, and the turkey cock, who had been born into the world with spurs and fancied himself really an emperor, put himself out like a vessel in full sail and flew at the duckling and became quite red in the head with passion, so that poor little thing did not know where to go and was quite miserable because he was so ugly and laughed at by the whole farmyard. So it went on from day to day till it got worse and worse. The poor duckling was driven about by everyone. Even his brothers and sisters were unkind to him. And the world say, "Ah, you ugly creature, I wish the cat would get you." And his mother said she wished he had never been born. The ducks pecked him, the chickens beat him, and the girl who fed the poultry kicked him with her feet. So at last he ran away, frightened the little birds in the hedge as he flew over the palings. "They're afraid of me because I'm ugly," he said. So he closed his eyes and flew still farther, until he came out on a large moor inhabited by wild ducks. Here he remained the whole night, feeling very tired and sorrowful. In the morning, when the wild ducks rose in the air, they stared at their new comrade. "What sort of duck are you?" they all said, coming round him. He bowed to them and was polite as he could be. He did not reply to their question. "You are exceedingly ugly," said the wild ducks, "but that will not matter if you do not want to marry one of our family." Poor thing. He had no thoughts of marriage. All he wanted was permission to lie among the rushes and drink some water on the moor. After he had been on the moor 2 days, there came 2 wild geese, or rather goslings, for they had not been out of the eggs long, and were very saucy. "Listen, friend," said one of them to the duckling, "you're so ugly that we like you very well. Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Not far from here is another moor, in which there are some pretty wild geese, all unmarried, in the chance for you to get a wife. You may be lucky, ugly as you are." Yeah, the married theme is gonna drive through this. I'm pretty sure is what's gonna happen. We just have to deal with that. Pop, pop sounded in the air, and the 2 wild geese fell dead among the rushes, and the water was tinged with blood. Ooh. I'm going to read that again. Pop, pop sounded in the air. The 2 wild geese fell dead among the rushes, and the water was tinged with blood. Hunters. Pop, pop echoes far and wide in the distance, and whole flocks of wild geese rose up from the rushes. The sound continued from every direction, for the sportsmen surrounded the moor, and some were even seated on branches of trees overlooking the rushes, and blue smoke from guns rose like clouds over the dark trees. And as it floated away across the water, a number of sporting dogs bounded among the rushes, which bent beneath them wherever they went. How they terrified the poor ducklings. He turned away his head to hide it under his wing, and all the same moment a large, terrible dog passed quite near him. His jaws were open, his tongue hung from his mouth, and his eyes glared fearfully. He thrust his nose close to the duckling, showing his sharp teeth. And then splash, splash, he went in the water without touching him. Oh, sighed the duckling, how thankful I am for being so ugly. Even a dog will not bite me. So he lay quite still, while the shot rattled through the rushes and the gunfire shot over him. It was late in the day before it all became quiet. But even when the poor young thing did not dare to move, he waited quietly for several hours, and then after looking carefully around him, hastened away from the moor as fast as he could. He ran over fields and meadow till a storm arose, and he could hardly struggle against it. Towards evening he reached a poor little cottage, seemed ready to fail, and only remained standing because it could not decide which side to fall to first. I really like that sentence. I'm just going to read those words again. And only remained standing. It could not decide on which side to fall first. It takes energy to decide, doesn't it? The storm continued so violent that the duckling could go no farther. He sat down by the cottage, and then he noticed that the door was not quite closed in consequence of one of the hinges having given way. Creaky, creaky. Okay, no creaky. I lost it. Cottage, notice, door, hinge, slip through. There was therefore a narrow opening near the bottom, large enough for him to slip through, which he did very quietly, and got a shelter for the night. A woman, a tomcat, and a hen lived in this cottage. The tomcat, whom the Mr. called my little son, was the great favorite. He could rise his back and purr, and even throw out sparks from his fur if it were stroked the wrong way. Then hen had very short... My cat does that too, actually. I can get static coming off of my cat when I give her pets. It's really cool. If it's dark, you can see it. It's really neat, and she loves it. The hen has very short legs, so she called Chicky Short Legs. She laid good eggs, though, and her mistress loved her as if she had been her own child. In the morning, the stranger visitor was discovered, and the tomcat began to purr, and the hen to cluck. "What is that noise about?" said the old woman, looking round the room. But her sight was not very good. Therefore, when she saw the duckling, she thought it must have been a fat duck, glaucoma, that had strayed from the home. "Oh, what a prize!" she exclaimed. "I hope it's not a drake, for then I shall have some duck eggs." "Oh, caught on, drake, boy duck. Got it. Okay, caught on. I'm a little slow, but get it now. Okay." "Oh, what a prize!" she exclaimed. "I hope it's not a drake, for then I'll have some duck eggs. I must wait and see." So the duckling was allowed to remain on trial for 3 weeks, but there were no eggs. Now the tomcat was master of the house, and the hen was mistress, and they always said, "We and the world," for they believed themselves to be half the world, and the better half too. The duckling thought the others might hold a different opinion on the subject, but the hen would not listen to such doubts. "Can you lay eggs?" she said. "No." "Then have you goodness to hold your tongue. Can you raise your back, or purr, or throw out sparks?" said the tomcat. "No." "Then you have no right to express an opinion when sensible people are speaking." "Then you have no right to express an opinion when sensible people are speaking." Sorry, a very large bird flew by and it totally distracted me. So the duckling sat in the corner, feeling very low-spirited, till the sunshine and the fresh air came into the room through the open door, and then he began to feel such a great longing for the swim on the water that he could not help telling the hen. "What an absurd idea," said the hen. "You have nothing else to do, therefore you have foolish fancies. If you could purr or lay eggs, they would pass away. But it's so delightful to swim about on the water," said the duckling, "and so refreshing to feel it close to your head while you dive down in the bottom." "Delightful indeed," said the hen. "Why, you must be crazy," asked the cat. "He is the cleverest animal." I know. Ask him how he would like to swim about in the water, or to dive under it. I will not speak for my own opinion, as our mistress, the old woman. There is one in the world more clever than she. Do you think she would like to swim, or let the water close to her head? You don't understand me, said the duckling. We don't understand you? Who can understand you, I wonder? Do you consider yourself more clever than a cat?